For plantation purposes, teak seedlings are required in large numbers, and young trees don't survive well if directly grown at the plantation site. It is therefore easier and cheaper to grow seedlings in one place, the nursery, and plant them only when they become sturdy enough to survive the harsh conditions of the plantation site. The purpose of teak nursery is to grow sufficient number of seedlings of the right size and sturdiness before the beginning of the planting season. In nursery, teak seedlings may be grown in raised beds to make stumps, polybags, or root trainers. The stump method. Stumps are the seedlings of which most of the shoot and side roots have been removed. Stump method has a number of advantages. Teak stumps are easier and cheaper to transport. They are simpler and cheaper to plant. They can be stored for about a week without reduction in survival rates. They can be planted just before or early in the rainy season. They have better survival rate on site as the water-consuming shoot has been removed. The teak root shoot or stump nursery area should be divided in two parts to be cultivated in alternate years. In one part, sun hemp should be grown to enhance the fertility of the soil, while on the other, teak seedlings should be raised for stumps. On the following year after harvest, sun hemp should be grown where teak seedlings were raised and teak seedlings where sun hemp was there. Sun hemp, which was planted to improve the fertility of the soil, should be cut in the month of September and left to dry there itself. When it dries over a month, in November it should be ploughed into the soil. Ploughing breaks the soil and mixes the dried sun hemp well into it. About 2 months later, in January, the soil should be harrowed and reploughed to loosen and level it. The ploughed area should be freed from any weeds and left to dry for about 2 months. Preparation of beds. Beds are prepared between 16th March to 30th April. Well-ploughed nursery plots should be marked with ropes and wooden pegs to prepare beds of the size 4 feet by 40 feet. Soil of the plot must be elevated by 1 feet for each bed. All big blocks of soil must be broken down and the fine soil should be amassed to make the beds. The bed should be arranged one after the other throughout the plot. 1 feet gap should be kept between two beds. Here is a plot with about 200 beds prepared over it. In the second week of May, before sowing, all beds should be watered. In about 3 days, weed seeds, if any, germinate. Then, weeding of the bed should be done and all vegetative growth should be removed. Stones and other pebbles should also be removed. The beds are now ready for sowing of seeds. Seed sowing. Sowing of seeds must be done between 22nd May to 30th May, about a month before the monsoons. 1.5 kg treated seeds are required per bed. The treated seeds may be procured from Maharashtra Forest Seed Centre, Nagpur. Seeds should be sown in the bed by spot sowing method with the help of a sickle. In a spot, about 3 seeds should be sown together. The depth of sowing should be equal to the diameter of the seed, neither too deep nor too much over the surface. Distance between two spots in a single line should be about 10 centimeters, and the line-to-line distance should be about 12 centimeters. Thus, a 4 feet by 40 feet bed accommodates about 1200 spots for seed sowing. After sowing, the seed should be covered with a mixture of soft loose soil and sand. The beds thus sown with seeds must be left undisturbed throughout the summer. The summer heat before the monsoon works as a heat treatment to the bed, ensuring better germination. All information such as plot number, compartment number, total number of beds and seed source should be mentioned besides each plot in the nursery area. Germination. It takes about 7 to 15 days for the seeds to germinate after the onset of monsoons. Some take even longer. It is important to ensure adequate moisture in the beds to facilitate germination. Thus, if the rains fail, it is important to water the beds with sprinklers. About 10 to 15 days old tender teak sapling looks like this. Irrigation. Though most activities of teak nursery are done in rainy season, in case of short dry spells, watering becomes very crucial. During these dry spells, the young saplings must be watered adequately. In a large-scale nursery, an irrigation system such as overhead sprinklers can be used. Weeding. Ideally, a nursery should be kept weed-free. Weeds should not compete with the seedlings for nutrients, moisture and sunlight. Starting from July, 5 weeding sessions should be given. While the plants are still very young, frequent weeding should be done with a gap of 15 days. Care must be taken that the weed is uprooted, that is taken out along with its root. Culling. In a teak nursery, culling is done to ensure that most uniform and vigorous plants that are likely to give the highest yield get maximum sunlight and nutrients. Culling is done to obtain uniform, good quality stumps. Weak and undernourished plants should be removed to reduce competition for the better stock. Culling should be done 3 times, in the first week of August, September and October while the soil is still soft and moist. Post-October, culling should be avoided as the soil becomes dry and the roots spread well underground. After culling, the remaining plants should be counted. The number of plants remaining should be marked next to the bed. All changes should be noted in the nursery register. Application of fertilizers. Application of fertilizers enhances the growth of seedlings. After the first culling, around the first week of August, fertilizer should be applied to the beds for better growth. 500 grams of diammonium phosphate and 500 grams of urea should be mixed and used for each bed. Shallow furrows should be dug using a sickle in between each rows of teak plants. Then, the fertilizer mix should be put in the furrows. Care must be taken not to injure the roots while applying the fertilizer. Lastly, the fertilizer must be covered with soil. Pest control. Pest control is an important aspect of teak nursery management. During the monsoon, it is important to keep a check if grub has attacked the bed. Grub feeds on the tender teak roots, resulting in severe wilting. If care is not taken in time, the whole plot may get destroyed. Hibernating grub starts moving up towards the soil surface during the month of January. They change to pupa in April-May. Then in June, they come out of the ground as beetle and aggregate on host plants to feed and mate. Again, they enter the soil before sunrise and lay eggs. The eggs hatch in about 7 to 8 days. Normally, this time coincides with the germination of teak seeds in the beds. The resulting C-shaped young grubs feed on the tender teak roots throughout August-September. Then October onwards, they begin to return deep underground to hibernate throughout the winter. The only time to control grub is between April to September when the grubs are near the soil surface. Conventional method of white grub management is treatment of nursery beds with soil insecticide Thimet 10 grams at the rate 200 grams per bed. Usually, the time of grub attack coincides with the time of first application of fertilizer. Thus, Thimet may be mixed with fertilizer for uniform spreading on the bed. An integrated pest management is recommended, for which deep ploughing of nursery beds should be done. In monsoon, the grubs change to beetles. Before the monsoon rains, in the second week of June, selected host plants such as ber, neem, drumstick, palas, imli, rose, grapevine, khejri and acacia show maximum attractancy for adult beetles. The beetle population should be controlled using light traps. As per the integrated pest management module, these should be sprayed with 0.02% imidacloprid, 0.05% to 0.10% of dimethoate or monocrotophos as per the recommendation. These are systemic insecticides which kill the beetles. In addition, white grub or larva should be manually picked and killed from the nursery beds by locating them under the wilting seedlings. Defoliator and skeletonizer are two pests that feed on the teak leaves. If Thimet has already been applied to the beds for grub control, it is expected that defoliators and skeletonizers will not feed on the plants raised on those beds. Presently in nurseries, mainly endosulfan is being sprayed, which is carcinogenic and is banned. Rodents are yet another menace. They make deep furrows in the beds and eat away the roots. Thus, the plants begin to wilt.
उंदराने खाल्ल्यामुळे पूर्ण स्टंप खराब झाला हा. आता ए ग्रेडचा स्टंप निघाला असता आमचा.
Regular inspection is a must. Once the furrows are spotted, water should be poured over it to get the rat out and manually kill it with stick. Else, wheat flour balls filled with zinc phosphate should be kept at the mouth of the furrows so that the rats feed on it and get killed. Teak seeds show dormancy and they have low germination percentage. However, if well looked after, they have the potential to grow up to breast height within 6 to 10 months after planting. In 10 to 12 months, the roots of the teak saplings are mature and are ready to be uprooted for stump preparation. Stump preparation. Every year around second week of June, the year-old teak plants are uprooted for stump preparation. This is generally done after the first showers of monsoon when the soil is relatively wet and soft. Usually, hoe is used to loosen the soil. First, the soil must be adequately loosened and only then the plant should be pulled out. A typical 1-year-old uprooted teak plant looks like this. This is the shoot portion and this is the root portion. Portion between the shoot and the root is called the collar. Then, all the fibrous roots should be pruned using a sickle. Root must be chopped about 8 inches below the collar area. The shoot must be chopped about 1 cm above the collar area. This is a stump. Stumps of girth more than 5 cm are of grade A. Stumps of girth between 3 cm and 5 cm are of grade B. And stumps of girth less than 3 cm are of grade C. As a convention, stumps of thumb thickness or more should be chosen as grade A. Stumps of thickness less than a thumb but more than the little finger should be chosen for grade B, while stumps less than the thickness of a little finger should be chosen for grade C. Graded stumps should then be bundled in packs of 50 and sent off for plantation. Of approximately 3000 seeds planted in 1200 spots of one bed, 600 grade A stumps, 300 grade B stumps and 100 grade C stumps are expected. If they are stored in cool sheds, They can be kept even for weeks. Once the stumps are prepared, they must be sent for planting at the earliest. If there is a delay expected in planting, then the collar side of the stump must be coated with a mixture of clay and cow dung. This prevents the stumps from desiccation. These stumps are ready for planting. Around the first week of July, sun hemp must be sown in the beds where teak stumps were uprooted. In the coming year, sun hemp will grow in these beds from where the teak stumps were uprooted, and teak seedlings will be raised in the beds where sun hemp was earlier grown. In Maharashtra, the calendar that is followed in a root shoot or a stump nursery is cutting of sun hemp and leaving it to dry over the soil itself in the month of September, ploughing of the soil where the sun hemp was left to dry in the month of November, re-ploughing and harrowing in the month of January. Preparation of beds between February to March, seed sowing 4th week of May, re-sowing if necessary 1st or 2nd week of June, first weeding 2nd week of July, second weeding 4th week of July, third weeding 2nd week of August, fourth weeding 1st week of September, and fifth weeding 1st week of October. First culling 2nd week of August, second culling 1st week of September, third culling 1st week of October. First application of fertilizer 2nd week of August, and second application of fertilizer 1st week of September. Uprooting of plants for stumps after the first rains around 20th of June. Sowing of sun hemp 1st and 2nd week of July.